What is up, my friends? It is January. It's cold. No matter where you are, I think it's cold.
Yeah.
It is just that time of the year where things are slowing down in most of the country, maybe totally iced over in some of the country. Or if you're fortunate to be like down in the south, maybe things are actually in pre-spawn already.
Yeah.
Right? So January can be one of those crazy months of where do you start, what do you do? Today, Griff and I are going to break down our 5 favorite baits each that we throw this time of the year, just to give you some insight on how we approach fishing this time of the year and maybe have some fun. I'm excited to see what you're going to talk about, sir.
Can't see.
Okay. If you would like to join us, let's go.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Depths, Lucky Craft, Jackal, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard-to-find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. All right, welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, the Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy Griff at G-Sticks Bespoke on Instagram, and we finally found Jeff.
There he is.
He's been missing for a while. Jeff, welcome back.
It's nice to see both of you as always.
And he's speaking.
Uh-oh.
I always speak.
Okay. January. Are you
Yes.
ready, Jeff?
I'm excited to see what you both have.
Okay. Because it's going to be much more exciting than your January, like one bait on one rod kind of thing.
2 baits, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, January is a really hard month to limit it down to 5 baits because there are so many different things that can be happening. So, understand we're going to go through, we each picked 5 baits, but literally I have like 10 baits here and I've been spending 15 minutes going, God, which one do I cut out? And what I finally decided was there are 5 baits that I pretty much have tied on every lake or river or pond system that I go to. So those are going to be my top 5. I'm excited to see how Griff approaches it because we approach things so differently. But let's talk about January conditions for a minute. I think we probably have half the country that's like iced and snowed in. They're not fishing at all.
Yeah,
right?
they suck.
And then we have half the country that's in like winter cold temperatures. So we were talking water temps in, it could be in the low to high 50s in some places. It could be in the 40s and the 30s,
Yeah.
right? So, what is your experience when the water really cools down? What do you see that it does to the fish?
So for us here in Arizona, I feel like the fishing gets a little bit better. Like the fall fishing kind of slows down for us, but when winter comes, these fish actually start to do their winter feeding, and they kind of school up a little bit more. The shad starts going shallow, and the bass just starts chasing them. So I think it can be a little bit more exciting in the winter if you're just willing to go out there in the cold. But we've been having a lot of issues out here with like our water. The water's low, it's muddy, it's
A lot of rain,
Yeah.
we've getting a lot of storms. I know guys in California be getting pounded with storms. So there's a lot of variables that
Yeah.
happen in the winter. The biggest thing to remember is when the water's cold, the fish are cold.
yeah.
Okay, so their metabolism is low, and so your timing is probably the single most critical piece to catching a fish in January, I would say.
Yeah,
I think more
absolutely,
important
yeah.
than any of the baits that we're talking about, if you don't have the right timing, you could be throwing these for 11 of the 12 hours of the day, but the fish fed in that 1 hour you weren't fishing,
Yeah.
and that was your entire chance to catch them. So you really got to dial in the timing, pay attention to the moon phase, pay attention to the weather, and really try to maximize your best time. And what is the best time? The only way to know is to fish.
Yeah.
So if you're in an area that you see food, you see bait, you see life, you see the right depth, maybe you have, live scan or, something, forward facing sonar that you can see like, oh, I know they're here, right? and they're not biting, then try it at a different time. And you're just going to have to put yourself in rotation and try in the morning, try midday, try afternoon, try evening, and hopefully you dial in that timing. But once you get the timing right, you'll find that, like Griff said, they school up. It could be just an amazing time of the year to catch them, or it can be a very frustrating time because everything's colder and slower and just not, feeding on a 24-hour cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you start?
Okay.
Where are you starting? What is bait number 1 for Griff in January?
Jerkbait. All right, and my favorite jerkbait to throw in the winter is a 110 plus 1.
Okay.
All right.
So tell us why.
So everybody knows, or everybody assumes that the fish are going to go deeper, right? The finesse approach with the 110 and getting it a little bit deeper, but it's not like way down there. It's just a little bit down there. So if they're mid-range or if they're deeper, they'll still come up to get it, right? So I like to throw the plus 1. It's probably the only time of the year that I throw a full-size 110.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
like the junior that much?
Yeah, I throw
Interesting.
the junior or smaller most of the year.
Interesting.
Yeah, but this one gives them a bigger size profile to look at. Since they're not going to want to move around a lot, they're going to come get it. It's going to be worth their time to come get it. So I like the 110 plus 1, and I just pretty much throw these 2 colors.
Well, I was going to ask you. I see 2 whites. Okay, so I see GP Stain Reaction and GP Stain Reaction Orange Belly.
Yeah.
So a transparent white, but basically a white color.
Yeah.
That's your go-to this time of the year?
That's it right there.
Okay, so you're looking for fish that are obviously probably feeding on shad?
Yes.
Okay.
So shad eaters. It's very strange that we have a lot of like craws in our lakes, and then some of the fish that we're catching are spitting up craws, but they're not eating anything that resembles a craw. Right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be something about the way that we're using those baits that's not attracting them.
So I have a strange theory that I've been processing this basically my whole life.
Yeah.
Right? So, everybody has heard like match the hatch, right?
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of people say like, first thing you do when you get to the lake is you go down to the shore, you tip over rocks, you see what the crawdads look like, you see what the bait is, or, oh, the fish is coughing up craws, I should put a craw on, or something like that,
Yeah.
right? There are times when that is 100% the right thing to do, right? Like, think about like when we go to, the Colorado River and we're catching smallmouth and they're just coughing up craws, you put a jig or something on there and they just destroy it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like there's enough of the real thing and they know what's bullshit,
Yeah.
right? Like there's enough craws and they're eating craws, they've been feeding on craws, and you put a jig or something down there, they know that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But they didn't forget what a shad is,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all of a sudden they're eating craws and all of a sudden there's this white shad thing jerking above their head. It triggers something in them.
Yeah.
Because they haven't seen a lot of that real thing. And so, and vice versa, right? A lot of times, like, I'll catch fish on a jig when they're crushing shad up on the bank.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's anything to it, but I've experienced a lot of this, like going the complete opposite of match the hatch this time of the year.
Yeah. So, you've heard like trying to compete with the real thing is very difficult, right? So, if there's 8 billion shad in the water and you throw a shad that looks just like them, which one are they going to choose?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they might be getting to your bait, but they're going to go through 8 billion shad before they get there, and then they're going to be full and back off.
Right.
Right. So
Are you doing anything special with your cadence this time of the year?
I'm going to start off aggressive, and then I'm going to slow down as the bites are not happening.
Okay.
So with the 110, I'm popping it on slack line. I'm going to do like 3 or 4 pops, quick pause, and then go right back into it. And then it might end up to me doing just 1 pop, giving it 30 seconds, and just waiting, and then wait for the bite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is something, I don't know, I haven't seen Griff's other 4, he's hiding them on me, but I think one trap that a lot of people fall into when it gets colder and the fishing kind of slows down, everything slows down a little bit, is that the anglers slow down too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you see a lot of people come into the store and they're struggling and they're not catching anything, and the instinct is to go light line, drop shot, little worm, Ned rig, like really slow down. And there are times when that is 100% the right thing to do. I'm convinced though, when they're not active that fishing some kind of reaction, if you can get it around them, is always the best way to get them.
Yeah, if you can create a reaction bite, then it's gonna spark something in the other fish around them too.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna get competitive, and then it's gonna create a big flurry of what's going on.
Yeah.
If there's fish around.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
All right. So number one for Griff is a jerkbait.
jerkbait.
Okay. Number one for me this time of the year is a jerkbait.
Whoa.
Oh.
So this will be a pretty fast segment. Now, I basically agree with everything that Griff said. I'm just going to throw another thing out. So I think if you guys are trying to figure out colors and timing, there are certain places, like out here in Arizona, they eat white a lot.
Yeah.
Like white's a great color in our water. It's relatively clear. It's got, you know, threadfin shad in it, so white just speaks to them. But nationwide, pre-spawn and like end of winter to pre-spawn is when white really starts crushing them. Basically, all the way up through shad spawn is your time to throw white. So even if they eat natural colors or chromes or whatever, late winter through shad spawn is white season. So you really can't go wrong. French pearl, stain reaction, anything that Griff just talked about is awesome, right? I'm gonna throw just another idea to you. So I go back and forth. I talk about these two jerkbaits a lot, the Edo Vision 110 and the Pointer 100, okay? So these are kind of my go-tos. For me in winter, the Pointer 100 is my go-to.
Okay.
So this is usually my starting point, and this is usually my backup. Now, the reason for that is the Pointer has such a true suspend to it. So where you're fishing relatively aggressive with yours, if I think that they're really on something aggressive, I'm gonna go to a 110. I can just fish it quicker. I like the way it moves. It's real sharp, even though it's still finessey, right? But so many days we get out here where it's just still and cold and calm, and the water's kind of dark, and you can just get the sense that not a lot's going on. There's a lot of days where I'll take a Pointer 100 and just give it 2 or 3 hard rips and then just sit on it. Just let it pause down there for 20, 30, 40 seconds and just give it that really long pause. And the fish just stare at it, and then all of a sudden I'll just give it one little pop and just that little jerk, and then they get it. And I can do that a lot better with a Pointer 100 than I can with a 110. So 110, the way it sits, has a tendency to kind of slow float, which is a great, I mean, it's a triggering factor of the bait. But in the winter, if I really want to marinate down there, I go here. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you guys is this is also the best few months coming up right now to throw things with blue in it. Okay, so take those two, for instance, GP Pro Blue, GP Skeleton Tennessee. This is the time of the year, if you guys are fishing cold, clear water, this is the time of the year to throw these colors. In Lucky Craft, Aurora Black is like my go-to winter color, or something like a Ghost Minnow. This is their new Silver Creek or Silver Cheek Ghost Minnow that gives you a little bit of flash. But something I love Aurora Black is it has that kind of bluish hue to it back there. Took one out of the box. This is that new Zebra Aurora Black, but either way is fine. You still get that whitish belly, but that bluish hue. There's something about that bluish hue this time of the year with the way the light's sitting, the darker water. So there you go. Tip that hopefully will help you guys out. But number one for me, also, you really can't go wrong with a jerkbait. So there you go. Number two for you, sir. I wonder if we have the exact same baits.
I think so.
They're gonna be
color doesn't matter.
They're gonna be
Oh, yes, it does, sir.
they're gonna be very similar. So number 2 for me is going to be a square bill.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So these are the 3 that I'm throwing. So I'm gonna go a little bit bigger than your standard square bill. Lucky Craft 2.5.
You've been crushing on that thing
Dude,
lately.
they love this thing.
Yeah.
Right. This Mibro one is a new one that I've been trying out all winter long, and they've been
That's a
crushing
great
this one.
I always forget about that one, too.
Yeah. So it's a flat side. It's pretty flat, right?
It is, yeah.
And then the Megabass Sonic side. So these 3 have been doing really well for me. The Lucky Craft is super aggressive. It's got a really wide wobble to it, but it's got a bigger profile. So I'm not really looking to get it deeper. I just want that bigger profile and a more water push. But it is silent.
Yep.
There's
But
no
you
noise to
feel that thing thumping
Oh yeah.
on your rod. Even though it's not that big of a bait,
Oh, it's big
you
enough.
got 5/8 of an ounce, right? it thumps hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good one. And then these two right here are going to be real tight, subtle actions to them, but they're gonna move a lot of water because they're moving really fast, right? So
yeah. So you're gonna fish these quicker, more of a faster retrieve, and that one just slower and thump.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I'm fishing this and I'm not getting bit, but I think they're going to be on a square bill bite, I'll go to a flat side, and normally I'll get bit that way.
So obviously you're fishing shallow water. Are you looking for anything specific? Rock, stump, outside banks, inside banks, coves, point, like anything specific you're looking for?
So I'm going to fish them in shallow points and where there's brush.
Okay.
Like brush in the water.
Okay.
And obviously I'm looking for rock too. Like the best thing to deflect off of is rock.
Yeah.
So
okay,
there it is.
Awesome. Bam. Okay. So bait number 2 for me, Jeff.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Square bill.
Square bill.
Okay, now
Squirtle.
this is interesting because you've been fishing a lot more like rocky, wooded, covered lakes.
Yes.
Than me. So I also went with the square bill. My square bill choices are more circled around grass.
Okay.
So I agree with everything you said with where you're fishing. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you've been smoking them on that 2.5.
Yeah.
When you get around grass, if you guys are fishing any kind of lake or river system that has aquatic vegetation, usually what happens in the winter is a lot of that grass starts to die off, right? The water gets cold, the grass dies, and what will happen is the bass will look for whatever grass is left. And this is the time of the year that if you can find that grass, they will be there. Like they will all gravitate towards it. So in the summer when there's grass everywhere, the bass just kind of spread out. As the grass starts dying and you start getting more isolated clumps, and it's usually in the deeper pockets, right? Which tend to be more of a wintering hole, so the bass can kind of drop down into the deeper pocket, sit in that grass, they'll stack in there. So for me, a square bill is just, you really have kind of 3 options to throw in the grass, right? You have a bait that I'm going to talk about in a minute, and then if you're going to go shallow, you either have a square bill or a jackhammer, you know, or chatterbait style. I mean, they're kind of the same thing around the grass. I just have way more confidence that I'm going to get a giant on a crankbait than on a chatterbait, so I can just do this. But if you guys love throwing a jackhammer, same rules would apply here. But these are the baits that I love. So if there's a lot of grass, my favorite grass crankbait is a Craft Fat CB BDS. So you can do a BDS 2, a BDS 3, BDS 4, depending on what you want. So just like what Griff said, I like to go to the bigger sizes because it thumps really hard and there's no real sound to it. Yeah. Right? So I love the BDS 4. The Blitz Magnum SR is a relatively new one. Even though it's been out for, well, I guess 2 years now, it's still a new one for me. Like I'm still discovering it. But I love this one kind of as a backup to this when I feel like I could go bigger. This is kind of my version of like your Mibro Ryoshi crank that you have, right? And then, you know, finally you could go with something like this, like an S crank. So the 1.2 S crank, when the fishing gets really tough, is a no-brainer. As long as you guys don't have wood around, the 1.2 S crank is amazing around grass, open water and grass, but it has a built-in hunting action to it. So it's got a very unique shape to it. So this bait is going to basically hunt back to center and kind of build in its own cover deflection. And when you can get it down into grass, it rips out super easy and then keeps going. It's great. So as you can tell, I have a lot of reds. So you had a lot of shad colors, right? So you're fishing more rock, wood, where they're going to still be ambushing bait. I'm looking now in the grass, I'm looking more for just a trigger mechanism. And there's something about red this time of the year, like the next 3 months, you're going to see a lot of red posts. You're going to see a lot of tournaments won on red. Red is just one of those colors, late winter, early spring, as they start moving up, that triggers the fish. So there you go. There is my second bait of choice. Good pick, sir.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. Can it be the same?
No.
No. I hear some. I hear some blades. So
we're not going to be the same from here on out.
All right. This was in my pile to talk about. So I'm glad you talked about it.
Yeah. So my number 3 bait is going to be the A-rig. All right. and I don't think there's a better A-rig that we sell here than this Ramsey rig.
You like that little one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the micro is where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to create a school of small bait fish. Even though the bait out there is pretty big right now, I think that sometimes when you're running an A-rig through like a lot of shad or near fish, that they're gonna go for the easiest target, and something like this just creates that.
Do you think, you know how sometimes like rattles and sound scare them and we follow up with like a silent bait and you catch them?
Mhm.
Do you think the same thing happens with A-rigs? Like even if you're using a small bait, you're throwing a full-size rig and it's just this big, huge thing, you think it freaks them out?
I think
Whereas
so.
going to something like this is more
Yeah.
chill?
I've had, the colder it gets for me here, the small, I just downsize. We have 3 sizes of this. I
Yep.
start with the big one,
Yep.
like fall, and then like as it's getting colder, I go to the middle one, and then right now at the coldest part of the year, I'm just gonna run the micro.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And my beta choice on this one is gonna be the
It's
Huddle Fat
amazing how
Fly.
many you catch on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they smoke this thing, dude. It barely even moves under the water.
I guarantee you are the only person on YouTube talking about this bait on an A-rig, but I literally, he catches fish every time we go on this thing, and every time I see an rod, I'm like, you don't want a K-Tech or a Dolive shad or something normal?
Yeah.
They smoke it.
Yeah, they smoke
Yeah.
it, dude. They eat it up. Every lake that I've been to that I'm throwing the A-rig, that Epic Day last winter
Yep.
that I had,
Yep.
it was all on these. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It barely moves. It's just showing a profile with blades going by them.
Yeah,
and they just,
but that tail, even though we visually aren't seeing it move, it's moving.
yeah, it's creating.
It's got
some
that
kind
little
of-
wedge.
It's creating
Yeah.
some kind of vibration
Yeah.
in there. And I think right now that little tiny vibration with a small shad bait like this is pretty key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the shad aren't moving like crazy either.
right.
So
Yeah.
this one right here, this is the one.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Anything specific you're looking for, target like casting wise? I mean, obviously if you see them on live scope, it makes sense, but like if you're not doing that and you're just, are you looking for points or ditches or any?
With the A-rig, I'm looking for like vertical walls.
Okay.
Yeah, I throw against a lot of vertical walls, against a lot of like rocks that are sticking up, like that are vertical.
Yep.
I found the most luck with stuff like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
Bam.
All right, good choice, sir.
Yeah.
All right, number 3 for me, finally, Jeff, something different.
Oh, I was hoping for an A-rig.
For me, my third bait of choice, it would be a mid-depth crankbait. Okay, so mid-depth could mean different things depending on where you guys are. So for me, mid-depth is anywhere from like 10 to 20 feet, right? So I think of like, 20 plus as being like deep diving stuff, right? And I think that 10 to 20 is kind of mid, and I think 0 to 10 is like shallow diving. That's kind of how I generally think about it.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are, this is all gonna depend on how the fish are stacked up, okay? So what I'm looking to do with a bait like this is I'm looking to find areas in the back of a creek arm, in the back of a cove, in the back of a big bay, somewhere where if the bait was shallow, like what you were talking about earlier, right? The bait's shallow, and then a weather system comes through and freaks it out, and that bait pulls off somewhere.
yeah.
I'm looking for the pull-off spot.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm generally in the back of something because that's typically in the fall. The bait usually migrates to the back of a creek arm or the back of a cove, right? And they're seeking out that last bit of warmth. A lot of times on a warm afternoon, that the bait will move up and soak up that sun, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for the area where they're just gonna pull off to. So for me out here, that's generally like if we're fishing a reservoir, it's generally like a 15 foot, 18 foot, something like that zone. It could be a rock pile, it could be a bend of a creek arm, it could be a big tree. It's just something for when they're in the shallows and they're like, oh shit, it's cold, let's just go chill over here.
Yeah.
And they go there, right? For me, a crankbait's the best way to access that. Now, if that pull-off spot is in 25 feet, then I'm going with a Blitz Magnum or a Big M, right? If that pull-off spot is in 8 feet, then I'm probably going with a Blitz DR or a Deep X 100, something like that. But generally speaking, one of these two crankbaits will destroy them in the winter. So this is the OSP Blitz Max DR, and this is the Megabass Deep X 200 LBO. These are great crankbaits for imitating bait fish. I love them for bait fish. They're both relatively quiet. They do have internal casting system in the LBO. There's just a little bit of a knock in this, but they're relatively quiet, so they're not super intrusive. They come through cover great. I like the Blitz Max when I need to bang it around.
Yeah.
So if I have to hit it into a tree, hit it in a rock, this is my favorite one. But if I find that I'm trying to tick the tops of the trees or have it in more open water, I find that the fish eat the Deep X 200 without it deflecting off anything. And so that's kind of, for me, how I choose between them. So a little bit tighter, a little bit better in open water, a little bit wider, a little bit better when I have to grind it in. Okay. But it's kind of a no-brainer for me. It gives me, you know, my first two options were more aggressive, shallow type things. This is my, okay, they've pulled off somewhere. Let's just hit this specific rock pile or whatever it may be where they are. So there you go. Mid cranks for me, definitely number 3.
Okay, that's a good one. It's a good one.
I know. That's why I picked it. But thank you, Griff.
All right. I know you like throwing these.
Oh, these suck.
Bam. The spoon. So, in the wintertime, I'm going to go with this spooner here. It's not a big one, so it's the medium spoon. All right, I'm not going to go with the giant one. And I'm only going to throw this at one lake. Right? So, I'm going to Plez. I'm throwing this because this bait gives me the opportunity to catch all the different species of predator fish that are in there.
Yeah.
Right, so it's the right size. The white bass will eat it. The stripers are going crazy in the winter, and then the largemouth I feel like the largemouth are kind of picking up the scraps, right? So this, when it's floating down there, and they just see it, they're like, oh, it's a dead fish. I can get it before those stripers get to it.
Yeah. So would you say this is best when the fish are feeding on gizzard shad, little crappie, little, barf, like a white bass or a yellow bass, like they're feeding on bigger stuff, then you could throw a big flutter spoon and it has more of that big profile? Or is this just something that you throw no matter what?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it no matter what.
Okay.
But I feel like as it's getting colder, they're just looking for that meal, right? And if I'm not doing a finesse presentation, I gotta throw something bigger, but not giant.
Yep.
Because this is like, there's 2 more spoons bigger than this that we throw in the summer.
Right.
Right. So this one isn't that crazy, but I get a lot of bites on this, and I can sit in a pocket and pull a white bass out, then flip right back in there, pull a striper out, and then a largemouth.
So it's a good multi-species bait.
Yeah.
At what depth are you targeting, or what are you looking for? Are you solely looking for fish on the graph, or is there any like visual cues that you could look for without using the graph?
No, I'm looking on the graph.
So you're finding fish laid up in whatever depth they're laid up, and then this is just something you're bringing to them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you changing your casting or your ripping stroke or any of that versus how you would do it in the summer?
Yeah, so this one, in the summer, I'm just going to vertical drop it.
Okay.
Because we're using such bigger ones.
Yeah.
This one I'm going to cast, and I'm going to try to cast them through the lanes. Like, we have these walls that come down like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to get it right down the middle.
Okay.
And I'm going to work it through the middle in the deepest areas of that. Because we don't have, like, true ledges out here.
Okay.
Everybody loves to throw a spoon on a ledge.
Yep.
We're not
But the same idea would apply if you're on a ledge lake.
Yeah.
You're trying to just get it to the bottom, and you're just stroking it,
Yeah.
letting it flutter back down, just kind of hopping it.
Yeah,
Okay.
just hopping it.
Cool.
Trying to get it to flare down.
All right.
Gets bit.
Bait number 4,
Yeah.
going big. I like it.
You should try it. It's fun.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna let you do it. I was almost gonna pick a big bait for number 4, but the truth is that while this could have been a swim bait, I really only throw the swim bait in a couple places, but I almost always have one of these tied on. So this trumped it. It knocked the swim bait off the list, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Lipless. So a lot of you are probably thinking like, holy shit, I'm
The
under
shake in the
ice
head.
and these fuckers are throwing lipless? Yes. So fortunately for us, so Arizona is a pretty diverse place. So we have a lot of lakes that are kind of like they truly go through a winter. And then we are fortunate that we have basically the Colorado River system that's a relatively shallow, warm water river system that even though they go through winter, we could go to, Lake Pleasant, like you mentioned, the deepest spot's 200 feet. We have lakes that are 300, 400 feet. Colorado River deep might be 10 feet.
8
yeah,
feet.
8 feet, right? So those areas are going to behave a lot different. And getting back to what I was talking about again with the grass, this is a great way for me to fish around grass, to fish around cages, to fish around anything that fish will gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that grass is shallow, I want to catch them on the square bill because I like the responsiveness I get out of a square bill. I can feel it get in the grass, I can rip it really easy, get it back in the grass, rip it, and I like catching them that way. But if that grass is deeper, if the grass is in 10 feet or 12 feet or 15 feet, I can't get a square bill down there, I'll rip a lipless. Okay, so I wanted to just show you guys a couple, and again, red is going to be kind of a key color here. I'll throw a shad in there every once in a while, but this is kind of my 1-2 punch. LV500 is my go-to. It's just an easy one, weighs 3/4 ounce. It's super easy to rip in and out of grass. I will mix in a Vibration X Ultra as needed. Okay, so I really like some of the Megabass colors because they make a couple great matte finish reds. So like E2 Craw is one of my favorites. So these are just great ones for this time of the year. But again, getting back to what you talked about, sometimes you need to kind of chill things out, like your A-rig, right? You shrunk down. Sometimes they need to be quiet. So if the fish are seeing or hearing a lot of lipless come through, I find that going to one of these, either the Duo Apex Vibe or the Nishine Simcoe, are great options to mix in a silent option. So this is going to give you that same lipless, but they're totally quiet. They rip out of grass very easily. So they're both really good options for this time of the year. So there you go. Number 4 for me, a lipless.
That's a good lipless. That Simcoe.
It's a great one.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That thing
So, I mean, it's almost like a blade cutting out of the grass when you pull it. So I like the regular size one. They make a heavyweight in a regular. The heavyweight for me is more of like if I was going to use it as a blade bait replacement. I want to fish it deep and right on the bottom. The regular one is really easy for me just to kind of cast around and feel it get into the grass and rip it out of the grass. It has a super tight vibration the whole time, but it's totally quiet, which is great.
Yeah.
So give those a look. There's number 4 for me. All right. Number 5. Oh. Did I just see what I thought I saw?
You might have seen what you thought you saw.
All right. Let's hear it. The people want to know.
So this is a new bait to me. I've got a couple chances to play around with it, and I've been catching a lot of fish.
Okay.
All right. So.
Oh, it's not what I thought I saw.
This little sweeper from Raid, it's a pretty cool looking bait. When we first got him in, it was very intriguing to me, even though I'd never thrown anything like this, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember. I don't remember the last time that you and I talked about my Carolina rig fishing.
Yeah.
I don't think we had ever talked about it. And I came in, and Griff is literally in the tank, and he's got his little science projects going, and he's dragging a Carolina rig in the tank. Like, Carolina rig? He goes, dude, it's so sick on this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, talk about it.
Yeah. So it's just a little tiny shad profile bait with this tiny little boot tail on it, and it's kind of the same as the Huddle Fat Flies, right? So you move it and the tail goes 1,000,000 miles an hour, but you can't even tell that it's moving, right? And then I put it on a whip sinker,
okay,
right? And I'm gonna drag it just like a Carolina rig,
okay,
right? So there's not gonna be a lot of popping or jerking on it. I'm gonna cast it out and I'm just going to drag it,
okay,
right? Traditional Carolina rig style.
Why a whip sinker instead of like a sliding weight up and down like what people would usually use for a Carolina rig? Why do you like this version?
Oh, it's easier to tie.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the easiest. It was the easiest method for me, so that's what I tried it.
Okay.
And the sizes are a lot smaller. I can go down to a 3.5 gram.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
And I guess in theory, this is also a great time to catch them on, like using a shad bait with a whip sinker too.
Yeah.
Right. So you could drag this around, and if you're seeing fish are not reacting to it, you could cut this off, tie on like a high cut.
Yeah.
And do the same thing without having to retie your whole system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with like different hooks and stuff, and the hook that's working for me is just a nose hook drop shot.
Interesting.
Right. So I tried the little tiny wide gaps and stuff. It's got slots for every type of hook that you can think of already built into the bait. It's got a hole on the bottom for your hook to go through. it's either you even got a spot for the point of the hook to hide into.
Yep. So it doesn't snag.
Yeah, so it doesn't snag.
So you're using a pretty small, like a size 4 or 3
I
nose
used a
hook.
3.
Okay.
Number 3 fog shot was what I was using.
Okay.
Right. But when you drag this through the water, it'll kind of pick up off the bottom.
Yep.
And it'll glide, like it'll just kind of move around.
Interesting.
And then slow fall. It doesn't fall very fast at all, even with
Yeah.
a hook in it. And that tail's just back there like going nuts.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it from the bank a lot.
Okay.
And they've just been eating it up.
Cool.
So
All right.
so this is gonna be my number 5. I still have to do some more stuff with it, but I think this is gonna be an amazing setup.
But you've been having fun. You've been catching them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, keep informing us. Keep us
yeah,
up
absolutely.
to speed. All right. A Carolina rig, maybe the first time ever. Well, I don't even know if it's a true Carolina rig. It's really just a whip sinker rig with a little sweeper instead of a high cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Number 5 for me. I'm also going to the bottom. So there's no way I can talk about fishing this time of the year without talking about a jig. So a jig is just too good of a bait to throw. Now, this is an entire episode all on its own because there's 9 million different kinds of jigs, from big to mops to small to all kinds of different things. I basically try to keep this super simple, okay? If I'm fishing really clear water and the fish are eating either small craws, gobies, anything like that, I like to go with a football jig that's relatively transparent. So I like a smoke blue, a really light cinnamon, something really finessey that almost disappears under the water, okay? If I'm fishing anything with shadows, okay, so it could be shade pockets, cliff walls, docks, anything like that, I go to black. And then if I'm fishing deeper water, I generally start with something in like a green pumpkin or a green pumpkin shad, something like that. There's something magical this time of the year in the darker water about a black jig.
Really?
They just, and the same goes with a hair jig. So if you guys are fishing in hair jig places or tubes or whatever, this, I don't know if it's bugs. I don't really know what it is. I don't even care what it is. I just know that I've always had great luck this time of the year going all black. Clear water, muddy water, whatever. It's like the only time of the year that I'll mess with this. Now, as far as trailers go, we could do a Dolive craw, like what we talk about a lot. I usually switch this time of the year to going with like some kind of beaver. So a beaver or something that's got a little bit more, I just want it to have like a thump, something like that.
Okay.
To it. So it could be a craw that kind of gives a big hard thump. The beaver's just easy for me because I have 9 gazillion of them at all times on me. So it works great. A 3.5 beaver on any of these jigs works great. And I just color match. So if I'm fishing deep, I'll go with a green pumpkin with green pumpkin. If I'm fishing this clear one, I'll go with like a ghost shrimp. But if I'm going with the black, I usually just try to match it with one of these black and red colors. So again, remember, red can be a big trigger color this time of the year. So you could go with like an Amazari, but I really like something like this where it's black and it's got a little bit of brown, some subtle red on the back of this. It's just a super natural, you get a little bit of lifelike naturalness with a black jig, and I just pitch it around shade pockets, deeper boulder piles, anything like that. So a jig for me is a no-brainer. It's a great one for ponds. It's a great one for shore fishing. And it's obviously highly effective, in big lakes and all that kind of stuff as well. So there you go. I guess we both want to catch them on fast-moving stuff, and if we have to, we go to the bottom.
Yeah, sometimes you got to go slow.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like your thing or it's not in your wheelhouse, if you want to catch fish, the fish are going to dictate what they're going to eat.
For sure.
Right, so.
And again, getting back to what we talked about in the beginning, every lake is going to have specific things, right? So, I mean, if we are going to, Sag or we're going over there, like I'd probably definitely have a glide bait tied on, right? Depending on where you guys are, you might definitely have a drop shot tied on or some kind of tube, or there's certain things that you just have to have based on your waters. But day in and day out, the baits, I mean, I watch you fish. These are the baits that you always have on.
Yeah.
And you could literally go from that lake to that lake and have the same gear,
Yeah.
and it's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that was useful. If you guys have questions on any of the baits we talked about, how we're fishing them, you know, any of that kind of stuff, drop it down below in the comments, and we will definitely get to it. Jeff will leave links to the baits as well if you guys want to check out any of them closer. Enjoy January, sir.
Yeah. Let's go.
I don't think there's enough jackets to really truly enjoy January, but you know, the suffering is almost over. That's what January is for me.
Yeah.
Because February is that much closer to being warm, and then, you know, we're pretty much there.
Yeah.
So,
our 4 weeks of winter are almost over.
happy January, everyone. Jeff, you've been very quiet, but it's great to see you.
Oh, of
Jeff
course.
wants to throw this Carolina rig. He's contemplating. He's like, oh, I need.
Yeah,
to.
he's going to cut that Tyrant or Clash or whatever nonsense he has on there and rig up a little sweeper, aren't you, Jeff?
Yeah, Carolina rigging.
Yeah.
While I'm freezing my ass off on the lake sounds so fun.
I'm just going to go home. Or maybe not go.
That's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks so much for giving us time. Thank you for your business. Thank you for all your feedback. Again, hit us with questions, and we will see you again soon. Happy January, Jeff.
Hasta la vista.
Happy January, everyone. Peace.